President, please be seated. The court is now back in session. The chamber would like to now hand over to the prosecution to put further questions to the witness. You may now proceed. Co-prosecutor. Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President and Your Honors, I have no further questions to put to the witness, but I would like to cede the floor over to my colleague, Mrs. Nam Sam. I thank you very much indeed for responding to my questions, and I wish you all the best. Thank you.
Bonjour, Monsieur le Président.
Good morning, Mr. President, Your Honors. Good morning to all parties here present, and of course to witness Madam Witness, you have already given us many clarifications this morning in answer to the questions put to you. I would like to continue your questioning up until the lunch break. May I request you to continue answering the questions with concision and to provide as many details as possible regarding the facts you observed or heard about between 1968 and 1979 in order to assist the chamber in bringing the truth to light. Madam Witness, this morning the President asked you whether you were interviewed by OCIJ investigators, and you said yes on several occasions. I would also like you to tell us whether you were questioned prior to that, that is 4 years earlier, in July 2005, by another team of investigators who went to Malai to put questions to you.
Response. Though I don't remember the exact date, on another occasion I had met some investigator and later on with a few more.
Est-ce que vous vous souvenez concernant cette...
Regarding that first investigator, do you recall which organization he was working for?
Response. I'm afraid not.
Merci.
Thank you. As a matter of fact, witness, it is not certain, but perhaps we will have to refer to the report of an interview that you gave to members of an organization, SOAS. In that regard, we will show you the document and ask you to react to its contents. It is not apparent that you signed any report during that first interview. Let me put my first question to you. You said that you got married to Kandin alias Ken. He is now deceased. Can you tell us when your marriage took place?
Response. We got married in 1975. It was in August.
Et où la cérémonie de mariage a-t-elle eu lieu?
And where did the marriage ceremony take place? Do you recall the exact location?
Response. It was at the propaganda section, but the marriage took place at Steng Mien Chai.
Merci. Au moment du mariage,
Thank you. At the time of the marriage, did you know Lynn alias Ken? Or had you seen Lynn prior to your marriage? Or was that the first time you were seeing him?
Response. I had known him briefly before we got married.
et pourriez-vous me dire
And can you tell us under what circumstances you met him during that period before your marriage, and where specifically? Thank you.
Response. I had met him during the course of my art performance, and I saw him accompanying Pol Pot.
est-ce que vous saviez quelles étaient ses
Question. Do you know what his duties were at the time you met him as he accompanied Pol Pot?
Response. I only knew that he was Pol Pot's bodyguard.
Maintenant, si on remonte dans le
Question. Going back in time regarding information you had on the past of your husband, at the time of your marriage, did you know what your husband had done before April 1975 within the revolutionary movement?
Response. No, I don't know.
Est-ce qu'avant le mariage, on vous a
Question. Before the marriage, did you have to write your biography yourself as well as that of your husband?
Response. During the marriage, we had to recite our biography, telling the people in the ceremony about our origin of our class.
Est-ce qu'au moment de ce mariage,
Question. At the time of your marriage, did you and your husband have to relate to those who attended your marriage the functions you fulfilled since you joined the revolutionary movement?
Response. I don't remember.
est-ce qu'après le mariage,
Question. Did you have any conversations with your husband after your marriage regarding the period preceding your marriage, particularly the period from 1970 to 1975? And if yes, what did your husband say regarding his duties during that period?
Response. He had never discussed this with me. I only knew that he worked as a messenger.
est-ce que vous saviez
Question. Do you know what the duties of a messenger entailed at the time? Did it only have to do with conveyance of messages, or it had to do with other duties?
Response. A messenger was tasked with giving protection to uncles whenever they went about to other places.
Merci. Et
Thank you. Question. When you said he was a messenger in charge of protection, do you know in what zone he provided services for purposes of protection before 1970?
Response. I only knew that he gave protection to Uncle Pol Pot.
merci. Concernant ce mariage,
Thank you. Question. Regarding that marriage, who decided that you would get married to him?
The President. Witness, could you please hold on? Counsel for Mr. Nunchie, you may now proceed.
I just wonder if we're veering off into a direction that's not covered in this witness's particular area. You did mention this morning that she would be testifying about the communication structure. I'm not sure that the forced marriage aspect of the questioning is particularly relevant. Certainly if it directly relates to communication structure, that's one thing, but you did say that the testimony was limited to communication administrative structure this morning. So it's an objection based on relevance with respect to this witness.
Monsieur le Président, je ne serai pas long.
Mr. President, I won't be long on this issue of marriage, but I believe it is important for the witness to clarify the circumstances of her marriage, and we will subsequently examine the witness regarding the situation that was prevalent before that marriage and what Lynn told the witness regarding certain supposed relations. That marriage has an administrative structures component, particularly with regard to those who took decisions and who are referred to in the witness's interview before the co-investigating judges. I think it is therefore important for me to put this question to the witness without overly belaboring the point.
President, the question is allowed as it is related to the personality of this witness and the work of Office 870, as well as related to her husband's work. However, the Chamber noticed that in case 002/01, the Chamber informed of the various other instrument acts as mentioned in the closing order, excluding the forced marriage. The question can be put.
Thank you, Mr. President. So let me put my question again. Who decided on your marriage with Kan Lin, alias Ken?
At that time, the superior from my husband's side proposed to my superior, that is Hunam, for me to get married. Then they thought my opinion, and I said it depended on Angka, so Hunam agreed on this marriage.
Thank you. Do you remember who supervised your husband back then?
I cannot recall it clearly. It could be Hong or Uncle Pol Pot.
Thank you. When you speak about Hong, do you know what his duties were before or after April 1975? Do you know Hong under other names, or do you know his full name?
No, I do not know his other name because I did not stay with him.
So if I understood properly, regarding this marriage, it is the party that organized everything. Is that so?
Mr. President, if I may be heard.
Witness, please wait. The counsel, you may proceed.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. The question is rather leading and suggestive. It also assumes facts which are not in evidence. She indicated the circumstances under which she became married. If he wants to rephrase it, that's fine, but this particular gentleman has a habit of asking questions where there are facts that are assumed in the questions which are not in evidence.
I will reformulate my question, even if I don't agree with the defense's objection. Which leaders attended your marriage?
The leaders from both sides attended the marriage, and I myself consented to the marriage as well.
Were other marriages organized at the same time, or was this the only marriage organized then?
There were two couples at the time. It was South Elistria and his wife, and my couple.
Thank you for this clarification. Now I would like to return to the period that follows when you left the Ministry of Propaganda and Information. You said that you had worked there until 1976. Why did you leave the ministry? And where did you work after having left the Ministry of Propaganda?
When I left the Ministry of Propaganda, my husband asked me to live with him at K1. I did not call K8, rather I did not work then because I looked after my child.
Thank you. Can you tell us exactly what K8 was?
K8 was the vegetable growing unit to supply the unit itself and for sale at the market. That is the market for foreigners.
Do you remember who worked at K8? What kind of person worked at K8?
I cannot recall who was the supervisor of K8.
Est-ce
Was this a place where women worked, or where men worked, or men and women, or children? Can you specify? Can you give us a bit of detail on this?
There were women and the families of the bodyguards working there. There were no children.
Do you know which office was hierarchically above K8 when you were working at K8? Which office supervised K8?
K8 was subordinate to 870.
And did K8 have any kind of relation with K1?
These two units were close to one another.
And when you were at K8, where did you live? And did you live with your husband?
No, I did not live with him. We lived separately. I was living with another family. That is the family of Dun and his wife Pat. And I myself live alone with them.
I believe I didn't hear the name properly, the name that was translated into French. Can you repeat the name of this family? It was translated as Dun, but I'm not quite sure that that's it.
Tương was the name, and his wife's name was Pat. But his wife passed away and he remarried.
So did you know, since you were living with him and his family, did you know who this Tön was exactly, and for whom did Tön work?
Tương was also a bodyguard, but I did not know to which uncle he provided protection to.
Did you start working at K8 at one point, or did you only, or were you only taking care of your child?
At K8, I did not engage in any work. I looked after my child as I frequently visited the hospital.
And when you were at K8, did you notice people disappearing around you?
At K8, I observed that one person disappeared. That person's name was John. He looked after the storehouse there.
And back then, you only learned that this person had disappeared, or did you see this person being brought away when you were at K8, outside of K8?
No, I did not see it, but I only heard and knew about it.
So after K8, first of all, how long did you stay at K8? And then we will talk about what happened afterwards.
I stayed at K8 from 1976 to 1979.
Mr. President, for purposes of clarification, I would like to display to the witness an excerpt of her statement before the investigating judges. This is document E3/43, and it's also indexed as D201/8. And the excerpt that I would like to display is in French on page 6, English on page 7, and Khmer on page 7 as well. If necessary, I can provide the ERN, but I think it's easier just to give you the page numbers. So page 6 in French, page 7 in English, page 7 in Khmer as well. So with your leave, I can provide a copy of the statement to the witness and also display it on the monitor.
President, yes, you may proceed. Court officer, could you deliver the hard copy document for the witness examination?
No.
President, the prosecutor, you may use the content of the document to question this witness, as the witness has a poor eyesight and she forgets to bring her glasses.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm going to read out an excerpt of this statement, and which states the following. When I was ill, I would rest at K8. Lin brought me to K11. Later, I was transferred to K7. And later again, I was transferred to K8. And your last answer tells us that you stayed at K8 from 1976 to 1979. And did you also go to K11 and to K7 during that period?
I went to stay at the hospital at K11 for about 1 month. And I stayed overnight at K7. Then I was moved back to K8.
Merci.
Thank you. This clarifies the facts as presented in the record of the investigating judges. So, if I understood correctly, you only stayed for 1 night at K7, or did you stay there longer?
I stayed for 1 night only.
And did you know what K7 was? What were the different functions that were entrusted to Office K7?
No, I did not know.
And do you remember where K7 was located?
K7 was located near the riverside.
And in relation to the Royal Palace, how would you situate it? Was it north or west or south of the Royal Palace?
It was along the road leading to Chiroi-Chongwa, but I didn't know in which direction west or which direction from in comparison to the Royal Palace.
And did you know who ran K7 or who ran K7 when you went there?
No, I did not know. I only saw my husbands there.
You said earlier on that K8 was under the leadership of Office 870. And back then, did you know if K7 and K11 also had to report to this Office 870?
Yes, I knew about that. It was under Office 870.
And aside from K7, K8, and K11, did you know of K5?
No, I did not.
Est-ce que vous
Did you know an office called K12 during that same period?
K12 was situated near K11 as I was hospitalized at K11.
And did you know during the period of Democratic Kampuchea, or were you told what K12 was and what K12 was in charge of?
No, I did not know about K12.
And there's a last office on which I'd like to ask you for information, and this is Office K18. Did you ever hear of Office K18 during the period of Democratic Kampuchea? And if yes, what were the duties of this office?
I did not know K18 or where it was located.
Now I'm going to return to your husband's duties, Kalin alias Ken. You told us about your marriage, and very quickly, Mr. President, I would like to show two photographs that the witness gave to the investigators, and I will ask for your leave to display these photographs on the monitor. First photograph is indexed as D201/8.2.
President, yes, you may proceed. Court officer, can you take the first photo from the prosecutor for the witness view?
Je crois que
I see that the picture has not yet been displayed, but I still believe that even if the witness is not wearing her glasses, and that she will still be able to answer this question. And the question is, who is on this photograph that was given to the investigators? Who is this woman and who is this man on the photograph?
This is the photo of my husband and myself. And this photo was taken by the OCIG investigator.
donc si je comprends.
So if I understood correctly, the investigators took this picture, and upon looking at this picture, it seems that this is a painting that portrays you and your husband. Is that correct?
This photo was taken from a frame photo where I asked people to scan it and print it and display it.
And for us to be clear about this, when was this original photograph taken? The original photograph that is in this painting, or the photograph that was taken by the investigator.
The photo was taken in 1987. And I had it scanned in 2010.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much. Now, the second photograph is indexed as D201/8.1. And I will request the same, that is to say, to provide a copy of this picture and to display it on the screen as well.
President, yes, you may proceed. Court officer, can you deliver the photo for the witness examination?
Alors, sur cette
So on this photograph, there are 4 people. Can you provide us with the names of the 4 people on the photograph, starting from the person on the right-hand side and continuing to the left?
It was Uncle Ad, the wife of it. It was Auntie Ad, the wife of Son Sen, and I cannot recall the name of the person next to her.
Est-ce que votre
Is your husband on the photograph?
Yes.
And where is your husband, therefore?
At that time, he was working and he took this photograph with them. He was a soldier back then. It was either in 1984 or 1985, as I cannot recall it correctly.
Yes, okay, but just to be clear, where is your husband on this photograph? Is he the first person on the left-hand side, or is he the person in the middle, or is he the person on the right-hand side of the picture?
He stands on the right-hand side.
Thank you. Okay, this will be... I have no more questions regarding this picture. Now I would like to revisit your husband's duties between April 1975 or between your marriage in August 1975 and January 1979. First of all, we're going to focus on the period between your marriage and Pang's death. When you got married, where was Lin working? And you told us that you had seen him accompany Pol Pot. Could you tell us where he was working exactly?
Response. I don't remember where exactly he worked. I know he lived at Core 1 and he also went to K7, so I don't know exactly where he was at that time.
Thank you. When you say that he also went to K7, did you know what he was doing at K7?
Response. No, I don't.
Qui était, selon vos connaissances,
To your knowledge, who was the supervisor or who were the supervisors of Lynn during that period following your wedding?
Response. I don't remember who his supervisor was or superior was.
est-ce que vous avez su
Question. Did you know a man called Pang, or did you hear anyone mention the name Pang?
Response. Yes, I did.
que faisait Pang?
Question. What was the function of Pang under the Khmer Rouge?
Response. Pang was in charge of Office 870.
Est-ce que votre mari a travaillé avec Pang?
Question. Did your husband work with Pang?
Response. No, I didn't see him working with him.
Merci, mais la question...
Thank you. My question was not whether you saw him working with him, but whether you knew that he was working with Pang. In one way or the other, do you know whether he worked with Pang?
Response. I don't recollect this.
Merci.
Thank you, Madam Witness. To refresh your memory, I would like to read an excerpt of your interview record before the OCIJ investigators. It's document 03/43, that is E3/43. I'll read out the beginning of page 4 in French, and it is on page 4 in English and on page 4 in Khmer. So the same page in all three languages, Mr. President. May I request that the document be displayed on the screen?
The President, you may proceed.
Alors, la question est la suivante.
The question is as follows. In what year was Lin promoted supervisor of Office 870? And your answer was as follows. After Pang was arrested in 1977, they promoted my husband to replace Pang, who was the chairman of Office 870 or S71. I am not sure because 870 or S71 had the same meaning. End of quotes. Now, you told the co-investigating judges that Lin replaced Pang. Before he replaced Pang, did you mean to say that there was already some kind of relationship between Pang and Lin, or you do not know?
Response: I do not know. I stayed home and looked after my children.
Vous avez dit tout à l'heure que
Question: you said a while ago that Lin was Pol Pot's messenger, unless I am mistaken. Following your marriage, did he continue to be Pol Pot's messenger?
Response: 1 to 2 years after our marriage, he had remained a messenger, but later on, he moved to work at K1, the location which was near the National Assembly, and at that time, there were young people working there.
Et si j'ai bien compris, il est resté.
If I understood you correctly, he continued to work as Pol Pot's messenger, as a messenger for 2 or 3 years. Was that as a messenger for Pol Pot or for other leaders?
Response: he worked as a messenger.
Oui, ma question était de savoir si.
Yes. My question was whether he was a messenger for Pol Pot or for other persons.
Response: so far as I know, he had been working as a messenger for only Uncle Pol Pot all along.
Vous nous avez dit tout à l'heure que être.
Question. You stated a while ago that the duties of the messenger also included providing protection for the uncles. Was he also in charge of the security of Pol Pot?
Response: yes, he also provided protection for Uncle Pol Pot.
Est-ce qu'il était seul à assurer la protection de.
Was he the only person who provided for Pol Pot's safety, or he had other colleagues? And if yes, can you give us the names of those colleagues?
Response: at K1, there were quite a few people who were tasked with providing protection for the uncle, including people from the tribal ethnic minority, people including Tan, Nguyen, Chiu, and Song. And later on, Chiu moved to work at, or Chiem rather, at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. I don't remember the others.
Et le TAN.
Question. How about Tan? I heard that he was also at K1. Do you know what his specific duties were? Were they same as those of your husband? Or was he a superior or subordinate to your husband?
Response: he was also a guard. I do not know whether he was a superior or subordinate to my husband.
Est-ce que vous avez entendu parler.
Question. Did you hear anyone mention the name Kammy? It is Khammy.
Response. I used to hear of him, but I never saw him.
Merci.
Thank you. Question. You stated that when Lin was working at K1, he resided at K1. In which office was he working, to your knowledge?
Response. He was right there at K1. He was at K1, no other office, and I was at K8, which was just adjacent to that location.
Dans l'extrait que j'ai lu tout à l'heure,
Question. In the extract I read out a while ago, you stated that Lin had replaced Pang in the office of chairman of 870 or S71. What did you know about S71?
Response. I do not know anything about this.
est-ce que vous savez ce qui est
Question. Did you know what became of Pang?
Response. At that time, I heard that Pang was a traitor and later on was arrested.
et dans quelles circonstances avez-vous entendu
And under what circumstances did you hear that? Was that in the course of a simple conversation or during an official event organized by the regime?
Response. We heard from people talking about this from one another.
et où étiez-vous quand
Question. And where were you when you heard that? Was that when you were at Kate 8 or while you were at the hospital at K11?
Response. It was at K8.
est-ce qu'on n'a jamais parlé
Question. Did you ever hear anyone at K8 talk of the disappearance or the treachery of Pang while you were at K8?
Response. I do not recall this.
Monsieur le Président, je voudrais à ce stade
Mr. President, at this stage I would like to read an extract of the record drawn up by the organization SOAS on the 25th of July 2005, and the witness will be allowed to tell us whether she knows the contents of that statement since she didn't sign it. The reference is D224/D16. It may not be important to show the witness this document. However, we would like it to be placed on the screen. In French, it is page 2. In English, it's page 1. And in Khmer, it is page 4 of that document.
The President, you may proceed.
Merci. Donc je vais lire.
Thank you. I will now read an extract of that report written after the interview granted by the witness to that organization, specifically to the people who went to meet her in Malai. And that document was signed July 2005. Now, this is what is written in that document. And these statements are attributed to you, witness. Let me quote. We were told that Pang was a traitor. And further down, you said that we knew that Pang was dead because he was accused of betrayal, and we concluded that he was dead. We were told of his betrayal during meetings of the group. We believed it. We did not think it was make-up, or it was made up, I beg your pardon, says the interpreter. End of quote. Is what I have just read out to you what you stated in 2005? Has it refreshed your memory?
Response: yes, it does.
À part Pang,
Question. Apart from Pang, did they also talk about the arrest or betrayal of other persons close to Pang?
Response: Pum was also arrested after Pang was arrested.
ici encore, enfin, la transcription.
Here again, I heard the name Mum, but in Khmer I had heard something else. Could you please specify the name of that person again?
Response: the person is by the name of Phum, P-H-U-M.
D'accord. Est-ce que vous saviez.
Very well. Question. Did you know what Phum did and whether he worked with Pang?
Response: I don't remember all the details, but I knew that he worked with Pang.
Qui a donc remplacé.
Question. Who replaced Pang as far as all his functions are concerned after he disappeared up until 1979?
Response: the person who was Pang's successor was my husband.
Vous nous avez dit tout à l'heure.
Question. A while ago you told us that a number of K offices were under the supervision of Office K870 after Lin replaced Pang. Were those K offices under the supervision of your husband or other persons?
Response: my husband was overly in charge of Office 870 at that time, and the other people could have been supervising other officers, but I don't know.
Pourriez-vous nous dire une...
Question. Please tell us who became Lin's assistant as the chairman of Office 870 after the disappearance of Pang?
Response. I don't know.
Est-ce que vous savez...
Question. Did you know who were the members of the Office 870 committee chaired by your husband? Do you know any persons who are members of that committee?
Response. No, I don't.
Monsieur le Président, je voudrais...
Mr. President, I would like to read another extract of the interview given to SOAS on the 25th of July 2005. It is still document D224.16, and it is page 2 in French, page 1 in English, and in Khmer it is page 3. Would you leave? May I request that page 3 be placed on the monitor?
The President, you may proceed.
Merci. Donc c'est un très court extrait.
Thank you. It is a very short extract that I will read, an extract of this interview report. And it is stated in this document that you said the following to the persons. My husband became supervisor of S71 following the arrest of Pang. Tatan, alias Kiev, was with Lin in the S71 committee after Pang's arrest. End of quote. Witness, do you confirm these statements attributed to you, notably that Tatan was a member of S71 committee with Lin?
Response. I do not know whether this grand uncle was in this committee.
D'accord, merci pour la précision.
Very well, thank you for this clarification. Question. After your husband replaced Pang, to your knowledge, was he assigned any specific duties with regard to security vis-à-vis the enemies of democratic Cambodia?
Response. I don't know how to respond to this because I don't remember.
Est-ce qu'à l'époque...
Question. At K8, or whether you heard it over the radio, did you hear anyone talk about the enemies of democratic Cambodia?
Response. I used to hear from the radio broadcasts, but I don't just remember any.
Et d'après ce que vous avez...
Question. And from what you heard over the radio, were there different categories of the enemy? And would you be able to, or can you identify some of those categories of enemies for us, if you know about them?
Response: No, I don't.
Monsieur le Président, avec votre autorisation,
Mr. President, with your leave, I would like to read an extract of the record of the interview granted by Kyo Sampan. And the reference is E3/37 or D47. And I would like to have page 4 in Khmer, 5 in French, and page 5 in English placed on the screen.
The President, you may proceed.
merci. Donc, il s'agit.
Thank you. It is the record of an interview before the co-investigating judges, and Yu Bunlen, the investigating judge, put the question to the witness. Office 870, did it have other functions other than those you have described? And this is Kyo Sampan's answer. At first, this office was not so important, but at a later stage, it gained in importance because it was tasked with monitoring suspected members of the party for the standing committee. I learned this after the revolution collapsed when I reached Pailin. End of quote. This is stated by Kyo Sampan. Witness: did your husband ever mention, or did you learn from other sources who was in charge of conducting investigations regarding cadres who are suspected of betrayal?
Response: I do not get this.
Oui, je vais reformuler la question.
Yes, Madam Witness, I will rephrase my question. Did Lin ever talk to you, or did you hear from your sources or other persons that Lin was in charge of conducting investigations regarding cadres who were suspected of being traitors?
Response: he never told me about this, because at that time, husband and wife were not supposed to know one another's businesses.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much. Mr. President, I am getting ready to go into another line of questioning. Would it be appropriate for us to take the lunch break now? I am in your hands.
The President, thank you very much indeed. Co-prosecutor, it is now appropriate moment for the lunch adjournment. The chamber will adjourn until 1:30 p.m. when the next session will resume. Court officer is now instructed to assist Madam Witness during the lunch adjournment and have her return to the courtroom by 1:30 p.m. Counsel for Mr. Nuon Chea, you may now proceed.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm just informed that our client Nuon Chea is suffering from a backache, a headache, and a general lack of concentration. And for those 3 reasons, he'd like to retire to the holding cell for the afternoon session. And that's our application for this morning. Thank you very much.
The President. Thank you, Counsel. The Chamber notes the request of Mr. Nuon Chea through his counsel in which Mr. Nuon Chea expressly indicates that he wishes to waive his right to participate directly in the courtroom due to his health concerns. The Chamber therefore grants such request, and that Mr. Nuon Chea is allowed to observe the proceedings from his holding cell through the video link. The Chamber would like counsel for Mr. Nuon Chea to submit the waiver signed or given thumbprint by Mr. Nuon Chea. AV booth officers are now instructed to ensure that the audio-visual links are well connected to the holding cell of Mr. Nuon Chea so that he can observe the proceedings from there. Security personnel are now instructed to bring Mr. Khieu Samphan and Nuon Chea to their respective holding cell and return Mr. Khieu Samphan to the courtroom when the next session resumes. The court is adjourned.
សូមអញ្ជើញក្រោកឈរ